Welcome to Levels of Connection, where we discuss how human connections work and why they're so important. Welcome to Levels of Connection. In today's episode, I'm speaking with Miriam Gunn, a licensed therapist and executive business coach. She talks about exploring why you want to connect with somebody. Also, a lot of emphasis is being given on slowing down to understand one another and connect in an even more relatable and stronger way. She also challenges a bit as to why we need to keep connecting and that there's times that we need to also cut some connections. So it's really interesting. Looking forward to any comments that you may have. Enjoy. Hello, Miriam.
Stephanos, I'm so excited for this conversation.
It's really good to have you here. Welcome to Levels of Connection. To introduce you to our audience, Miriam Gunn is a friend, and also you're the CEO of Lead Better. You're a therapist and a coach. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always worked with people, and I started wanting to help people. That's how I became a licensed therapist. And then I realized the people I like to help the most are entrepreneurs and leaders. So primarily, that's who I work with: entrepreneurs, CEOs, high-level leaders of multi-million dollar companies. And I help them achieve the life that they want, because usually their personal life is screwing up their business, or their business is screwing up their personal life, one or the other. So we dance around those topics.
Thank you, Miriam. And I bet a lot of that has to do with how they connect with themselves and how they connect with others.
Totally. Totally. This topic is perfect. I just feel like we're going to be playing in such a fun playground because this is a fantastic topic to discuss. And it's endless. You can go so many different directions.
Mhm. So Miriam, you've had a multiple experiences and with different careers, different people, industries. What has been your experience as to even what connecting means?
You sent me a bunch of questions beforehand, and I loved looking at them and thinking about the topic because I think the definition of connection really has to do with what you want out of the connection. So, as a therapist, my desire in connecting with the client was to make them feel safe and to make them feel seen and heard. And it was really a one-way connection. Like, I was learning tons and tons about their life, but they were not learning a ton about my life. So it was very unequal, and that's okay. That was appropriate. But if that was in a friendship, that would be really unhealthy. That would be kind of toxic. And in a business relationship, it needs to be a little more equal, but maybe not full disclosure. So I'm going to say, defining connection, you have to start out with, what do you want at the end of that? Why are you connecting? And then let's define it.
That's really interesting. And what has been your experience in connecting with people that you want to do business with?
Um, I think that, let's see how I want to say this. There is this interesting nexus of intentionality. Like, as I tried to answer all of the questions you sent me beforehand, I kept ending up with the same answer of intentionality. That's something that's very important in my life. But there also is this piece of um, not being needy and having an open acceptance. So, with the businesses that I'm engaging with, I'm very clear in connecting with them. They feel seen, they feel heard, they know I can help them, but I don't need them to hire me. I'm okay if they hire me. I would love to work with them. I had 4 or 5 engagements last week that I sent out proposals, and I said, if the time isn't right now, that's okay. That's totally okay. So I think that there has to be really pay attention to the energy that you're projecting as you're trying to connect. And if I am honest, when I look at the way I connected as a young person, and you didn't ask this question, but I realized that I've always been good at connecting with people and always been very intentional. But as a young person, I would do it so they would like me, so that I would be like the teachers. I was always the teacher's pet and stuff like that. And, um, I was very good at creating the relationships I wanted. But the end result was so that I was liked or included. And you cannot bring that kind of energy into a business situation. You have to be okay the way you are. And if they want to work with you, awesome. And if they don't, awesome, because you don't know what's going to happen down the road. And I think that the intentionality of connecting in a business space has to be really, can I see you and can I offer a way to serve you and help you? And if that is welcome, let's talk numbers, let's talk how this can work. And if it's not welcome, that's okay.
Really interesting. So reflecting back on the younger Miriam, what advice would you give to the 20-year-old self?
Well, my 20-year-old self, I would say learn how to do some small talk. It doesn't have to all be deep and important, and learn how to just be silly. But to my younger self, I would have said, if like younger than 20, if people don't like you, it's not actually about you. It might be about them, it might be about their stage in life. And not everybody's going to like everybody. That's something that I appreciate. Our mutual friend, Rich Litvin, mutual coach, said, some people are just not going to like you because they're not going to like you. And it isn't personal. Maybe you remind them of their mother or their dad or, somebody who bullied them or whatever. That's what I would tell that younger version of me, is that if people are not interested in having a relationship with you, it isn't a negative about you per se, about me. It's not about me, it's about them. But to my 20-year-old self, for sure, I'd say, oh my gosh, lighten up, stop being so serious, laugh more, go to more Super Bowl parties, and just do some kind of superficial stuff and hang out with people.
Sounds good. And when did you realize this? Because you obviously didn't realize it when you were 20, right?
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think I had that insight. Um,
Hmm.
I feel like there are certain insights, excuse me, there are certain insights that are like a flash, like a boom, and all of a sudden you know it and you can't unknow it. I think other insights are more like a dawning where it just gets a little lighter and a little lighter. This particular insight is a dawning. So I feel like I learn this truth every day, even now. It's not about you. It's not about being liked and, stuff like that. And I think I'm infinitely more confident in my reasons for connecting now than I was, a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Like, it's a dawning thing. It's not a, when did this happen? When is this not happening? This is just happening over the course of my lifespan.
And what makes you more confident in connecting, this year versus 5 years ago versus 10 years ago?
I feel like I've done a lot of work. As I've helped my clients do this work, we always seem to attract people who have similar issues as ourselves, but maybe, 4 or 5 steps before. So as I'm working on helping them, I'm working on helping me. Um, I think that connecting with yourself, you mentioned that earlier in our conversation, connecting with yourself and understanding um, where are you wounded from the past. Now I'm going to start sounding like a therapist, and that's okay. Where are you wounded from the past, and to recognize that leaves um, footprints in your life. It leaves a pattern, it leaves a shape. And to say, I don't have to stay that shape, or I don't have to act out of that shape, but that shape will always be a part of my life. I just have to be aware. Um, And so connecting with myself and being able to be aware if somebody doesn't like my services or doesn't like me as a human, and being able to notice it, feel it, and say, that's okay, Miriam. Like being able to parent myself and talk myself through it. That's okay if they don't like you. In general, I'm a super likable person. So it's not like I'm super obnoxious and I have this big blind spot to see that I talk too much or not enough or too loud or too, it's not that. People are free to have their own agency and it isn't about me. So just being able to coach myself on that and say, you're okay. It doesn't matter if they like you or not. What are you working
Mm.
on today for you? And just kind of refocusing and getting my eyes off that person and back onto myself. That kind of connection to be able to say, am I more confident today than I was yesterday? Yes. Well done. Moving on. What's the next thing on my list?
And you do combine the skills and experience of a licensed therapist and a coach. So what are some things that you work with your clients to discover this connection with themselves?
I was working with someone about 2 weeks ago. This was actually quite interesting. This particular client is probably one of the highest functioning clients I have worked with in a long time. They're younger, so they're probably smarter than anybody I've worked with, but they're young in their career. And they were having an issue with going into meetings and feeling very, very insecure. And then, they were like burning a lot of energy going through this anxiety. So I started asking some questions. I took off my coaching hat for a second and I put on my therapist hat. And I said, did you ever have a situation where a meeting blew up in the way you're afraid these meetings are going to blow up? Oh, yeah, 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 for sure. It went like this. And they told me about a situation years earlier where, through no fault of their own, this meeting blew up and they were caught in the crossfire of it. And it created a traumatic response. Within your brain, you have structures that are kind of taking in what's happening. And if something goes sideways, your brain stores that in your amygdala and it says, remember this so that it doesn't happen again. It's a very protective mechanism. Well, that's what had happened to this individual. And unfortunately, it wasn't like it was maladaptive. Instead of helping them, it was hurting them. So every single meeting they went into with more than 4 or 5 people, massive anxiety. So we ended up utilizing a therapeutic technique. I mean, EMDR is a very famous trauma therapy protocol. And it's something I'm pretty fluent in. Once you get fluent in it, you can expand it or shorten it to, help the person. And we did a 10-minute exercise. And this person was like, oh my goodness, I feel different. I I think I'm free from this. So then I checked in, a
Mm.
couple weeks later. I mean, here and there, how have your meetings been? And they were like, they're totally different. And later I had said, what are the top 3 things in the last 6 weeks, the top most powerful experiences you've had in the last 6 weeks? um, just kind of trying to chart the course of where we were going next. And of the 3 things, that was one of them that they mentioned. So, um, being able to understand that your past experiences influence your present um, way of looking at things, and then being able to work with it so that you're not held hostage to it, but that you can rise up
Mm.
and overcome it that's one of my favorite things. If you said to me what was one of your highlights for the last couple of weeks, it would have been helping that person get free.
Thanks for sharing that, Miriam. And you also do a lot of work with couples, right?
Actually, not a ton. I used to. Long time
Okay.
ago I used to, but
Okay, that's what I
now,
remember. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Now I would say mostly if
Tell
the
me,
yeah.
what are the common themes between the work that you did in the past connecting, the way that couples connect versus how we connect in the business world. And when you're in a conference and you want to connect with other people, what are the commonalities that you see from your experience in the past and what you're doing more actively today?
I think in order for couples to do well, they have to remember that they're on the same team and that they may see things differently, but they're on the same team. And initially, when things are very fractured, you're trying to help the person give the other person the benefit of the doubt long enough to understand them. And honestly, I feel like companies and teams are like families and marriages, and there has to be giving the other person a benefit of the doubt, and that they're not just a jerk or they're not just trying to shaft you or the company or whatever. Slowing things down enough that you can actually hear from people and hear what their concerns are, and sometimes even understanding, there's lots of personality tests out there, whether it's, Myers-Briggs or the DISC test or the Enneagram or whatever. There's lots of ways to sort of assess how do you see the world. And if the people in leadership can understand that that person isn't annoying because they do X because that's how they see the world. That particular behavior
Mhm.
is how their brain is structured and how their psyche is structured. And then the question really becomes, how do you see the strength in that particular thing and create cross communication? Honestly, sometimes it's a little like teaching people another language, because the kind of people who are very much cross your T and dot your I's kind of people are super annoying to the kind of people who are big visionary people, and vice versa. But you have to have both of them for a company. You really have to have both of them, because the cross your T's and dot your I kind of people are the people that keep you from lawsuits, and they keep your company from going under. But if you don't have a visionary, your company doesn't go anywhere. So teaching those people how to play well and be on the same team is very similar to teaching spouses how to see their relative strengths and that they actually are on the same team.
We all know that, that's the way to do it, and that's a fantastic plan, and you've done it in the past successfully. What happens when things just don't work in companies, that they just don't want to, they hate each other's guts, they don't want to see each other? He's this way, she's that way, they're this way, they're that way. What do you do when there's so much conflict that it's just a team that doesn't work?
What do I do, or what does the
Yeah,
what am
yeah.
I
What do you
coaching
do?
them to do?
What do
Um,
you do with those clients?
with those clients. Okay. I mean, first, I think I have to take a deep breath and step back and get out of the weeds and start looking at the larger patterns and say, what is actually happening
Mm.
here? What's the subtext? Why is this person entrenched in? Um, I do think sometimes you have the wrong people in the wrong seats. Sometimes you have the right people in the wrong seats. A lot of my work has been with extraordinarily generous owners who will not fire people who need to be fired. I'm all about working to make it work,
Mm.
but I do think that there is a time to say enough. Um, and there have been in several companies that I have coached with people who were not teachable, not interested in growing, but they were interested in kind of rabble rousing and stirring the pot. And it took a little bit of time to get the various, either owners or CEOs to let them go. And then when they would let them go, they would say, oh my gosh, I wish I had done that 2 years ago. So I mean, that's not the only thing, but I do think that is part of what needs to happen. I definitely saw in one company that I worked with, one person was a brilliant, brilliant um, researcher slash operator, whatever, however you would want to call it. And he was screwing up the team so badly that the company couldn't work at all. And what really worked was siloing him into his own space. And the one part of the team was over here working on this. This other guy was over here working on his thing, and all communication went through a neutral person. And that actually worked. It was kind of unconventional, but it worked.
So sometimes the lack of connection is the way to go, I'm hearing.
Well, it depends. There's an interesting book out there called Necessary Endings. And in that book, they talk about when you have things that go sideways in terms of your connection, you need to do one of three things. But first you have to assess what is the person, the type of person we're dealing with. So I would say people who are high functioning always believe we should just have a conversation about it. And if you have a person who is high functioning or is growth mindset, yes, that is the answer. Have a conversation about it. And when someone says, you hurt me or you hurt the company in this way, they say, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for that to happen. It won't happen again. Thank you for having this conversation. There's another kind of person who refuses to hear that feedback. They push it back at you. Well, the reason I did that is because so-and-so did such and such, or the reason I did that is because you never told me. Like they just flip it, and it's everybody else's problem but theirs. That kind of person often can be worked with just with boundaries. And the people who are above them need to set up some sort of boundary that will help that work. Then there's a third kind of person who says, oh, I hurt you. Awesome. I'm glad. I meant to. And those are the kind of people you want to have exit your life and your company. And weirdly, there's a lot of ways to say that. They don't usually say it that directly, but there are actually people out there who are interested in doing, in spitting in your soup. I saw some article the other day that was bizarre, where people were talking about how annoyed they were at having to do self-checkouts at grocery stores, and that they always just stole 30% of their items as a quote unquote tax because they had to do the checking out. And I was like, what are you even talking about? I didn't even know there were people out there like that. Like, I tend to just believe the best. And it's those kind of people who are interested in, just sticking the knife in and giving it a twist that you need to get out of your company. No matter, a lot of times they're your brother-in-law or they're your nephew or they're, a lot of times they're family members, which makes it exceedingly difficult to get them out of your company. But you have to, because they're going to destroy it.
Miriam, you spoke earlier about obviously having your own company and connecting with others to speak about your brand, about your business, about expanding your business. What would be your advice to people listening on how to create a habit of connecting? They may be, in business development positions, they may be in sales, they may be in their own business owners. How do they develop a habit of connecting?
Stefanos, I think this depends on the makeup of the person. If they're the cross your T and dot your I type people, they need to keep a list, like a Excel spreadsheet. And I reached out and set a goal. I reached out to 5 or 10 people today, and or 20 or 40 or whatever, and keep track of that, measure it. I think there are other kinds of people who might need to spend time meditating on that, in the morning. Maybe actually both people should probably do both things, but meditating on, I would like to connect with people and make them, feel better isn't the right word. I would like to bring positive energy their direction. I think if people are praying people, they could ask God to bring the people across their path or to make their eyes open to situations. But it really comes down to intentionality. What is it you're trying to do? Let's set out a plan. Let's do it for X amount of time, a week or 2 weeks, and let's evaluate. Is this working? Is this helping? I am the kind of person where when someone said reach out to, I don't know, 10 people a day or 250 people this week, I did it because well, other people know better than me. And it made me miserable. I was so sad and crabby. And I was like,
What was what what did you not like about that method?
I felt like it just commoditized everything. And, was
Okay,
I a
okay.
better person for doing 15? And then everybody I was reaching out to, I felt like I was reaching out to so I could write them down on a list or whatever. And I was like, I don't need this list. And I'm just going to reach out to people and connect. And I saw through my email some new business was having a ribbon cutting. And in my heart, there was this space of, oh, I'd like to go see what that was like, what that was about, that particular business. And so I went to the ribbon cutting and I connected with the person and we set up a time to meet later. And I found out all about she has a son who is going through a health issue that I had formerly gone through. So we made another connection and it started to become organic and natural. And I think for non-disciplined people, maybe just going on your feelings isn't useful. But if you're a relatively disciplined, intentional person, that other stuff can break your back if you're not careful. And so right now, I'm sort of
What do
like,
you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean
well,
that other stuff can break your back?
the the shoulds, the ought tos, the lists, the
Okay.
quotas, stuff like that. I think you have to know yourself well enough to know what motivates you, what do you need
Mm.
to help you, and then start working with that and not treat yourself as a formula and a cog in a machine, but to say you're a human being with a heart and a spirit. How do you want to reach out to people? I don't know. I'm in kind of an intuitive phase right now, so I'm a little more like, how does it feel? Go with how it feels.
You got to do what feels right for you, right?
Well, at this stage in my life, for sure. If I was 18, maybe not. But at this stage, yes. Yes.
And for people that are listening to our conversation, what would be one thing that you would advise them to take action on an hour after they listen to this?
I'm going to back up before I say that and say something else and then say that. I think it's very important for people to maybe spend a little bit of time thinking about the relationships that are frustrating to them or the connections that are frustrating to them. People have sort of a one size fits all, like, and they either share too much with everybody or they share too little with everybody, and they don't understand that connections exist in strata, and that whether you want to go like in a bullseye and go out like a target or whether you want to go deep, it doesn't matter. But there's a certain level of people who are meant to be in your life in a shallow way always, and that's okay. And there's another level of people who are meant to be in your life in the I tell you everything about my life way. And then there's all these little strata in between. And then it's not one size fits all. And I think a lot of times when people are frustrated with the connections in their life, they would do well to spend some time thinking about them and saying, am I treating them all as one? Do I have expectations that that person would be more to me than they actually are? Or is this relationship not working because I'm actually not giving them anything? It could be anywhere in between. But if you give people permission to be in the outer ring, these are my shallow friends, and that's okay. I don't tell them they're my shallow friends, but they are friends where we're warm. And if I needed to borrow something from them, I could, but I'm not going to tell them what's really going on in my life. And they're not going to tell me what's really going on in their life. And that's okay. And then there's everything else in between. And then the thing that I would have them do is to be intentional about how they pursue those people within that strata. Don't try and take this person and make them become this other thing, but be intentional in the way you engage with them. I have one friend who wants me to be way more of a friend than I am ever going to be. And I can still connect with them in a way that's super meaningful, but never goes any deeper than I need it to go. And I have other friends where I risk big. Even within the companies that I'm in, there are people who are very trustworthy and people who aren't. And a business relationship is not the same thing as a friendship. So just getting clear in your head about what is the category of this particular person. And if they don't fit the mold that you want them to, you don't have to get rid of them, but you do have to just be aware of the limitations that will make this relationship work well. When you try and make, a dog be a horse or a horse be a cat or whatever, it doesn't go well. So,
So I'm hearing defining the people that are around you, defining the expectations that you have, and understanding the relationship that you have with them.
yes.
And understanding really the boundaries of the different relationships that you have.
Yes. And the people you're pursuing. Because like if I were to say in, an hour after this podcast or in this moment while they're listening, who are the people they're interested in pursuing and why? Understanding the why and what do they want out of that? And and is that even good or realistic or healthy? It might be, it might not be, I don't know. But then taking your next step based off of some intelligent, thoughtful, meditative process, getting clear and then taking action. It seems like people miss one of those three things. They don't take the time to really think about it or get clear or take action. Somewhere in there, it falls apart. So you kind of have to do all three.
What is, what do you mentioned earlier, the relationship with oneself. And I know you also have animals on the farm. How is that connection with the animals that you have affecting the rest of your connections?
I do all sorts of experiments with these animals. Um, all good, healthy experiments. But like, for example, I'm very curious about the kind of presence that one brings into a scenario, and what do the other people pick up on? And people are not honest like animals are. So I'll give you two examples that are just kind of freaking me out right now. I have 4 horses and they were out in the field. And normally when you approach them in the field, they might stand there, but more often than not, they'll walk away because they don't want me to put them back in. And I had some cherry licorice, and I thought, I wonder if the horses would like this. I put some in my pocket and I walked out there because it's basically a sugar cube, right? And in my brain, I thought, I wonder if they will like this. And as soon as I thought that, all 4 of them started walking toward me. And I went, what was in my body language that said, approach me, And so then I tried it with all 4, and one of them tasted it and spit it out. One of them tasted it and ate it. One of them tasted it and was like wrinkling her nose, and one sniffed and just walked away. But what did I do that communicated to them approach? And then the other day I was at a friend's house and they had offered me, this is a friend who's a really good friend, so I know she wouldn't care. They had offered me a boiled egg, and the egg white was a little too rubbery. And I thought in my brain, I wonder if I could give this to the dog. And the dog was clear across the room, was not looking at me at all. And all of a sudden, it wandered right over to me, and I totally slipped at the egg white. And I just thought, whoa, that's so interesting. We have a foster dog right now because our shelter was really full. And I could tell that it was very just shut down. Like it was like a shadow of a dog. We said we should call this the ghost dog. And they told us that at another shelter, it was on anti-anxiety medication. And they gave me a bunch of drugs to give the dog. And I said, well, I'm just going to see. Let me just see. And I was always quiet around it. And I didn't give it my direct attention. I just exhibited leadership skills. I moved quietly, definitively. I gave very clear
Mhm.
instructions in quiet words. And this dog, it took about 6 weeks, but it just came alive. It's all waggy and it's all everything with me, not with everybody, just with me. And I think like being able to bring calm, assertive, quiet energy, um, I don't know, it speaks to these animals. So I love animals because they're so honest. You get an immediate reaction.
Mhm.
And with people, I don't know if you've had this, but I can be talking with someone and I'll say something and I'll go, oh, I lost them right there. Right in that moment, I could feel like the break in the connection. And,
Mhm.
usually I've said something a little too strongly and they're offended or something. I used to do this as a therapist all the time. You can tell when you like quote unquote join with people, and I can tell when I rupture the joining. It's something you feel anyway, but they don't show it. You never see it. They just never schedule again. Um, and so when you feel that rupture, then you have to, like, now I can say out loud, and I did not do this as a younger person. Like, if you and I were having a conversation and I felt that between you and I would say, hey, Stephanos, what just happened a second ago? I felt like we were on the same page. And then I said blah, blah, and I felt you like go away. What happened? And then you
Yeah.
would say, whatever it is you said. And that very act would fix it usually. Um, anyway,
How
I'm
do you use the nonverbal communication with the horses and the dogs that you described earlier with other humans?
that one is tough because people are so nuanced. I was raised in a culture where my dad is from another country. He's from a Middle Eastern country, and direct eye contact was considered to be disrespectful. So I was with
Hmm.
a person, um, and not using direct eye contact. They were talking about something very important to them. And I was very present looking away, and they said, well, clearly you're not interested. Why am I even bothering to tell you this? And I was glad they verbalized it. And I said, hang on a second. Hang on. I'm fully present. I just heard everything you said. This is why I was doing that. Clearly you like more eye contact. Um, but I find eye contact is a very difficult thing. With dogs, it's consistent across species, what it means. With horses, it's consistent. With people, it's incredibly inconsistent. And some people need really direct eye contact, and other people need to break that eye contact a lot. So I guess I would say that I am aware that all the body language speaks volumes, but I try and say stuff up front like, I don't actually know you yet. So if I do anything that feels off, tell me or give me an opportunity
Hmm.
to, fix it. I make things a lot more overt, um, and just say, hey, we're getting to know each other. And if we miss, it's okay. But use your words and just tell me.
So I'm hearing, when you're thinking about it, just don't leave it at that thought, but verbalize it and communicate with the other person that's with you and see maybe they have a totally different idea about what they're receiving, and you might avoid a misunderstanding or you might create a bond there.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Miriam, it's been already almost 40 minutes, and the time just flew by, and with a lot of insights in this chat that we had. So thank you so much for joining Levels of Connection. What was useful for you today, Miriam?
Oh, Stephanos, it's always fun to spend time with you. Like, I just think you are such a thoughtful, engaging human. So I love the conversation. Um, it's good for me to sort of think through uh, why do I connect? Know why I connect, and to see over the arc of my lifespan how that reason has changed, and to maybe celebrate the wins. I've had a lot of great connections in my life, and I anticipate a lot more, and to celebrate those. So I think those are a few of the things, but I just love the opportunity to hang out with you.
Same here, Miriam. Thanks for joining. And next time, the I end my episodes with my international friends with a invitation to Cyprus. I know you were in Spain last year, from what I remember. So next trip in Europe, you should come to Cyprus. We'll have the follow-up conversation in Cyprus. How does that sound?
I love it in person. I would love it. Then I could see your lemon tree in person.
See, there you go.
That's right.
Thanks,
Thanks so
Miriam. I'll
much.
talk to you soon. All
Okay,
right.
bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye.
Thank you for watching today's episode with Miriam Gunn, and thank you for your continued support to this channel. Looking forward to your comments, and let us know what was useful for you today. See you soon.